Next, from the press briefing room at the state capitol, Republican senators led by Senate Minority Leader Christine Radogno explain why they are opposed to the legislature raising taxes during a lame duck session. This runs about 15 minutes.
So thus far this session, I believe the taxpayers have won the battle in that they have forestalled the continuation of the income tax increase, which was promised to be temporary. But they haven't won the war. The Democrat leaders and the governor have made it very, very clear that they intend to have a vote on tax increases after the November election. And the people of Illinois need to join us in blocking that effort. We've seen this playbook before, and we are focused again on the lame duck session and the veto session. That's a time when the people who are accountable to the voters will not be facing re-election or will not be facing re-election for some time. We've seen this playbook before. As you recall, the 2011 income tax increase occurred at 2 in the morning in the middle of a lame duck session with people that did not return to Springfield. I have no doubt that they're willing to do this again. It's important to remember the people of Illinois are due for a raise on January 1st, what amounts to approximately a week's pay for the average family. But we need to be vigilant in making sure that outgoing lawmakers that are no longer responsible to voters end up taking a vote that will take that raise away. We've introduced a resolution that makes it clear that we oppose that tax increase. We are encouraging all of our Democratic colleagues to sign on to that resolution, and we hope that the people that they represent will strongly encourage them to sign on to that resolution. Lame duck action is not something that should be occurring on very controversial and important issues. Those should be reserved for the regular session of the General Assembly. Now with that, I'd like to introduce Senator Rezin to say a few words.
Thank you, Leader Radogno. I've joined my colleagues today because I do know firsthand how this tactic works. In 2010, my constituents experienced a lame duck bait and switch following the election. Then State Representative Corinne Gordon promised the voters she would oppose an income tax increase. However, after being defeated in the election, Gordon was promoted or given a job by Governor Quinn. After she left office in mid-January, she was referred to a job on the Prison Parole Board. That type of action definitely raises questions. Illinois voters don't trust politicians, and the past 3 governors have given them plenty of reason to feel this way. The 2011 lame duck income tax increase, the highest increase in the Illinois history, has given Illinois voters plenty of reason not to trust their government. It's political gamesmanship, and it should not happen. Candidates should be honest with the voters before and after the election. No matter what the outcome of the election is, the outcome of the election should not change a promise to the constituents. When governors and legislative leaders cut deals and offer jobs to lame ducks to change their votes, it undermines trust in all elected officials. Legislators should always be accountable to their voters. I strongly support this resolution, and I urge for the adoption so we can restore a bit of trust in Illinois government. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dale Ryder. I'm state senator from the 55th District of Illinois, and I'm proud to join my Republican colleagues in support of the resolution and a call for accountability. Members of both parties like to throw around words like trust and accountability and doing the right thing. This is a very simple issue. It is an issue of respect to the voters. Rewind 4 years ago when the Democrats had been in control for about 8 years and they'd been loading up the state budget with all kinds of goodies and paying for those with one-time revenue sources, whether it was massive borrowing or raiding the pensions. And finally, they had run out of revenue sources, whereas their budget was out there, way out there over the cliff. And so they had to do something. Rather than tell the voters the truth, in November of 2010, that they were going to raise taxes. They were going to raise taxes in a huge manner. They did the duck and cover, the wink and the nod, and then they came back here after the election was over and said, we're raising your taxes and we're raising them by 67%. But don't worry, it'll be temporary. Now, let's come to the present. The Democrats have done the same thing. The budget that's coming over to the Senate today is loaded with pork barrel spending that we'll talk more about a little bit later. It spends more than it takes in. It creates obligations we can't possibly pay for, not just in this next fiscal year, but in the fiscal years after that. And so we can see what's coming. Like having the other team's playbook, we can see this team is in the same situation that they were 4 years ago, and they're going to run the same play. And so we are out in front, and we are asking every single Democrat in the legislature, in the Senate, and in the House, and we're asking the governor to tell the voters now, are you going to swear off a lame duck tax increase? You're going to respect the voters, or are you not? Or are you willing to stand up and say, yeah, regardless of whether it's a lame duck session or regardless of whether it's the start of a new General Assembly, we're going to continue to push raise taxes. Tell the truth. That's the message to the Democrats here. Be honest, be upfront, tell the truth.
Thank you, Dale. Darren LaHood, State Senator, 37th District from Peoria. It's important to remember when Governor Quinn gave his State of the Budget address and said, we're going to make this tax increase permanent. It was followed up by the Speaker and the President both affirming that. And what happened between then and now is the Illinois taxpayers spoke up. And people spoke up and said, we don't want this to happen. And so what we've seen this week is a budget that doesn't have that tax increase in it. But what we're hearing this week is Democrats speaking out of both sides of their mouths. Pass this gimmickry budget, but we're going to pass the tax increase in the lame duck. That's what we're hearing. They're telling people we're going to pass this in the lame duck, just get us through this budget, and that's what's going to happen. And again, getting back to trust. And people are cynical of state government for good reason, because they've seen this pattern, this movie in the past. And the preview has been seen this week again, that pass this budget right now and we're going to come back in the lame duck. And remember what lame duck is. You don't have to face the consequences of your actions in lame duck. And that's what this is about. And so it's important with this resolution and us standing here today and taking this pledge and commitment for all members of the General Assembly between now and November 4th to commit to not passing this tax increase or any tax increase in the lame duck. Thank you.
Okay. Quick questions since we're in session. Go ahead.
To me, the governor and the Senate Democrats and the Speaker have all said, yeah, we do need this money, we want this money. I mean, it doesn't seem to me that they're hiding anything. I'm wondering what the story is.
Well, they don't have the votes for it. And so the question is, the reason they don't have the votes for it is because their members are feeling accountable to the voters. The whole point of our resolution is once that accountability is gone or put off for some time, it makes it easier to pass. And so we're saying, fine, let's have that discussion if it needs to be had in January when the next crop of legislators who actually have to face the voters are in place. We're speaking only of lame duck.
And what about the Republicans' playbook? I mean, have you presented a budget or presented a way out of the fiscal morass that the Democrats can say, hey?
We've presented many options. There are many bills that are sitting in assignments and rules that have promoted different ways of doing things and haven't gotten any traction. So yes, we certainly have. And again, the focus here is on accountability and trust. What we're speaking about here today is using lame ducks to accomplish something you couldn't accomplish with people who are facing voters.
And so if I am watching or listening or reading about this event, what should I do? I'm just a little old taxpayer.
I would call my representative and say, have an honest vote when you have it. Have it when you're accountable to voters.
Mayor Redonio, on the topic of the November election, I'm wondering your thoughts on how this session has gone so far, what this budget and this looming vote or no vote on a tax increase might do to your chances of picking up seats in the Senate, and how do you feel?
Well, I mean, that's a whole nother subject, which I'm happy to talk about maybe when we have more time. But, I think the point here is, it's not about the politics. We're saying, many of the bills that we have introduced are permanent solution to lame duck voting that would require increased majorities. I mean, this is not good policy, no matter who is in charge. And the fact of the matter is, we're saying let's not ever have a vote on a tax issue. Of course we'll have votes on tax issues. What we're saying is, let's have it when there's accountability.
So if Quinn wins re-election, doesn't that mean that they'll just want a tax increase, whether it's lame duck or regular session?
I don't think it necessarily translates that way. He's been pretty open. He wants it now and has not been able to get those votes. So I don't think the two are necessarily the same.
Are you speaking specifically of the income tax increase? I know you mentioned that several times, but is there any other options as well that tax increases might take form?
Well, there's always the ability to raise all kinds of taxes. But again, we're not saying don't ever discuss revenue options. That's unrealistic. We need to discuss those. We need to participate in those. We're talking about accountability.
Let's just get that straight. So you haven't ruled out the possibility of a tax increase as long as it doesn't happen in that short window.
I do not believe we need to have the tax increase. I'm pretty firm, and I think I've been consistent, that I think this state can live within the revenue that we would raise with the tax increase sunsetting. What I just said is, we always need to discuss options and be open to everything. It's about accountability right now. I am not moving and saying, oh, gee whiz, we ought to have a tax increase.
But it sounds to me like the best thing for your cause would be for in November, people to vote Republicans in their election.
Well, I would agree with that.
And I'm wondering what the hope is to swell the numbers, both in the Senate and the House, and in the statewide, the governor, enough to make a difference.
Well, clearly, we hope to swell the numbers in both chambers.
Are there enough competitive races? What hope do you have to get?
This is a long discussion about the election. Again, we can have it later. It involves the map, and we can go on. This is, again, about the accountability issue with lame ducks. So, any other questions? Okay.
Even if it does change after the election, right now it's predicated on building up the bill backlog again, senior fund borrowing. How fiscally responsible is that?
Well, clearly it's not, and I think that you will see a lot of discussion as we talk about the budget, pointing out some of the tricks that have gotten us into the problem that we're into, delaying payment cycle. The budget is definitely problematic.
This week we've seen some fairly heated discussion about education fund, things like that. Are you anticipating the gloves coming off today as well, as far as being heated and being very poignant about your guys' perspectives?
Well, we usually have some pretty passionate debate. I think we feel pretty strongly about our positions over here. So, yeah, I expect the debate will be passionate.
Yesterday, try to give you something to cover. Capital bill was pretty bipartisan. Do you have an agreement? What is your caucus thinking on the capital bill?
Well, we will be going to caucus. I mean, I think that the program that was laid out based on the number of votes in the House seems to be one that we'll have a lot of interest in. We'll be talking about that in detail during caucus today.
How early are you anticipating having to vote on this today?
I don't know what the schedule is today. That's an interesting question. So we're prepared to discuss everything that's out there as soon as it comes up. Thank you.
You're watching the Illinois Channel.